Hello, this is Comic Dupes, and welcome back to another Lumion Legacy HTUC video. And in today's video, I'll be talking about the Cosmiore forms, more specifically Cosmiore Encased. Videos will be distributed for each forms and will go in order from Encased to Unleashed. These Cosmiore forms are different enough from one another to warrant said video. So in today's video, I'll be talking about how to use and counter Cosmiore Encased. From learning the counters and checks and teammates in order to know how to team build around Cosmiore, to learning the roles and sets you can use in its battles, today's video is all about how to use and counter Cosmiore Encased. First section will be about Encased's role, which is defined by its base stats and typing. First off, its defensive prowess is actually quite nice, as its HP stat of 99, melee defense stat of 135, and range defense stat of 98 makes Encased out to be a bulky Lumion for non-invested and invested matchups. This gives Cosmiore to live any hit in the game, especially if you pair it with its normal ability Enchanted Coat to reduce damage against super effective attacks. The same cannot be said for its offensive prowess. It has the potential to throw many moves before resting with an energy stat of 145. It has a melee attack stat of 43, range attack stat of 84, and a speed stat of 46. Cosmiore won't be hitting too hard or outspeeding much with these stats, which can leave it susceptible to being revenge killed or broken through easily. However, paired with the negative personality trait Sluggish, its slow speed stat can be used to underspeed some slow pivoters like Dokomori, Yursnak, and Luminami, as well as a nice niche Bane of Haste setter. It has some nice defensive resistances to boost its defensive prowess. First off, major resistances to common offensive types such as Water, Brawler, and Mine are great to have, as well as others like Fire, Plant, and Electric. This off the bat allows you to answer meta threats like Totab, Wrestlin, Ikizune, Obsidian, Tunjalin, Dokomori, Venolin, and Shachi. However, its weaknesses leave it exposed to Lumions such as Lashent, Umbrat, basically any metal and bug type. Overall, this makes Cosmiore a pretty defensive Lumion if you're looking to find a Lumion that has consistent bulk. However, due to its lack of damage, Encased will fit on more balanced and semi-stall teams, as using a Lumion this passive will lead to your teams losing momentum. It's best to support Encased defensively rather than offensively, which will be seen through the sets and teammate sections. Only one viable Encased set, which is a defensive set that utilizes Enchanted Coat. This reduces super effective moves by 25%, which helps specific matchups against ancient types and general stuff that you hit super effectively. Once the abilities get changed though, an SA Cosmiore running Quick Recovery could be niched to remove the Slumber status. However, Enchanted Coat is just more consistent. Personality for the set will be Robust Sluggish primarily. Clever can help you wall stuff better like Ikizune, Lantorch, Shachi, and more, but not only can Robust help against Shachi and Ikizune already, but it is better to make your matchups better against Totab and Wrestlin, as these are still relevant threats. Sluggish, as previously mentioned, is to reduce our speed as much as possible to underspeed slow pivoters like Yursnak, Dokomori, Luminami, and anything faster. While you won't be hitting the switch in too hard, it removes the safety element that slow pivots are meant to accomplish. Chip is chip, damage is damage. There are 3 guaranteed moves to run: Meteor Crash for opposing ancient types trying to break you, Slumber for longevity, and Peace of Mind to take advantage of melee and range attackers you wall like Tunjalin, Obsidian, and as said previously. The 4th move option can be a mixture of Icicle Traps, Hypnotize, and Psychoblast. Psychoblast is just better to confirm kills against Brawler types, while Icicle Traps is nice to force hazard removers or fire types onto the field. This is quite beneficial as you can bring in teammates that are great against said removers and fire types. For example, Dukuda is a nice abuser of Icicle Traps as it can beat hazard removers like Gargoyle Defense, Cleone, and Charonix, as well as its answers mainly being plant types weak to Ice Cold traps. Hypnotize is also nice as it can help your team alleviate pressure against specific offensive swap-ins that your opponent has for Encased. So I did forget to mention that Cosmiore has Dissipate. Dissipate on Cosmiore is a pretty good move considering the fact that Cosmiore is pretty lackluster offensive-wise and its coverage is even worse. So mediating that issue by just getting out of the battle and then bringing an offensive wall breaker into the battlefield is always nice. Although I wouldn't go to Cosmiore as a offensive or defensive pivot for any offensive teams, I still think that Dissipate is a pretty noteworthy move to run. If this were me, I'd replace this over Peace of Mind on sets, mainly because pivot and setup isn't really the best when you're trying to utilize Illumian, because you'd much rather have either more coverage in replace of Dissipate, and Dissipate just has the fact that you can go into something more stronger rather than using something like Cosmiore to try and set up. Items can include Heavy Armor for Robust, Heavy Shield for Clever, and Mysterious Dust for both. Dust helps to remove Slumber Effect much faster, while the heavy items synergize well with your high energy stat and gives you ample time to heal, set up, and do damage without waiting or resting. Other niche items include Archaic or Shade Pearls to help matchups against Glaciadia, Arceros, Vesperatu, and others. However, matchups are niche, which means they aren't recommended to run. TPs are a bit standard but deviate from the regular Colosseum sets. 200 HP and 200 melee defense are to maximize melee bulk, while 80 range attack allows you to safely 2-hit KO non-clever Obsidians and 3-hit KO Tundralins after a Peace of Mind. 4 energy due to the 4 energy rule, while 16 range defense are leftovers. You can drop 80 range attack and put it into the range defense, as this will help you slightly better against Shachi and Lantorch matchups. However, it's not really much of a damage difference. However, damage reduction is still damage reduction, so maybe you can try and investing into your range defense for leftovers may be a nice idea to do. However, your matchups against Obsi and Tundra, which admittedly you don't really have a lot of breakers against them on semi-stall teams or balanced teams, it's just nice to have a defensive swap in for both of them. So with that out of the way, let's get to the counters and checks and teammates for Cosmiore Encased. So this is the counters and checks section for Cosmiore Encased. This section is going to be pretty simple because there are 2 types that you have to worry about, although both types are pretty plentiful in this metagame. However, because this is a pretty simple section, it allows you to team build around these types very well, because most of them, at least resistance wise, don't really hit a lot of stuff super effectively and have a lot of common Lumians and matchups that of course can wall each and one of them. First off, metal types are going to be the outright best answer to Cosmiore Encased, as solo metal types, and at least most of them, all resist Cosmiore's coverage. First off, Jetwing and Hunter are going to be your most common metal types in terms of just team building around them. Jetwing, of course, has the ability to set up Magnify and then sweep teams from there if possible. And then Hunter here also has the fact that Vice Jaws is very pressuring, as unless your name is not a Villeforge, you're not going to want to be taking those Vice Jaws straight from a hit. Anyways, Seer Knight and Valkyrie are also nice other options in order to break Encased. Other than that, you have a lot of bug types in this metagame. Harvesect, Violana, and Flight Chomp, more so the latter 2 are really good in this metagame. Violana are running Discordance for stuff like Eclipse, and now that you have Discordance, you of course can answer Cosmiore Encased. And as for Flight Chomp can poison Cosmiore Encased, forcing it to slumber if it's not dust. It also has Parasitize to just beat it outright. It is faster than it, so it can bulk up and then of course set up on it as well. And it's not really fearing the Peace of Mind on the swap, because it of course is going to heal all that HP back. And of course, it's not going to be doing too much because Cosmiore can't really do too much to a clever Fly Chomp. Anyways, this gives you a pretty good example of what to use. More specifically, against metal types, you want to use other opposing metal types, or you want to offensively check them with earth stabs, and also fire types are just nice to cover this defensively. What's also nice about bug types is that bug types are pretty prone to icicle traps, so unless you're not running icicle traps, that is going to be one of the best ways to answer these bug types, as well as the fact that you can slot in ice types like some that I'll be talking about later. So the first core that I wanted to mention is a Snag Rex type of balance type team. Obviously, Snagoop and Tyrex, they work pretty well together. Snagoop doesn't want to face stuff like Jetwing and other metals, which Tyrex can now do well against because of Thunder Chomp. And Snagoop over here can also help with Tyrex's answers. Tyrex doesn't really have a lot of answers, but doubling Snagoop in on pretty much good earth resists like Garbantis is just very nice in general. Of course, other options for this team I'm going to be going over. Revenine, this could be any sort of real cleaner, but honestly I don't really like to run passive spirits, and Revenine, of course, being a very good revenge killer with its vengeance ability is just very funny and very nice. Also, other than this, Revenine and Tyrex will help with the ice resists, which the main range defense core of Fly Chomp and Plasmoth don't really do well against. Of course, Luminami also helping with those useful ice resists, and of course Cosmiore Luminami, not much really wants to go up against this core. Obviously, I can instantly think of Vesperatu as one, which is why we can have a robust Fly Chomp over to the side here. Rex is just a pretty good option for it. You can get double into Revenine, stuff like that. Luminami has Shade Pearl as well, so as long as you're predicting and getting these in as much as possible, then Vesperatu shouldn't be a big of a problem. Your Soul may be more problematic, but again, we got Snagoop, Plasmoth, stuff like that. And yeah, this team is pretty fun, I'd say. A lot of pivot, especially with Dissipate from Cosmiore, pivot from this, Dissipate or FNF from this. And then of course, you got Revenine to revenge kill anything you really need to. Not a lot of ranged walls at the moment, at least the passive, like excluding the passive ones, can really take hits from Revenine on Vengeance. And then Tyrex Snagoop, of course, to try and clean or wall break very early into the game. So the final team that I will be talking about is Cosmiore under Rain. Now, I could have ended this section by mentioning Cosmiore in a very bulky stall, semi-stall type team, but obviously I feel like there's a lot better mind type options for those, stuff like Violana and stuff, so I'd rather much go with Dissipate sets to support offense. And what better way to support offense that is in Rain? Specifically, Deladrix has a lot of bad matchups when it comes to Rain. Stuff like Dokomori and Fly Chomp are always going to be getting in it, as well as other bad matchups that you don't really want to face under Rain. Stuff like Tundrelin and Oxydrake, which obviously Sea Scourge cannot break. And then you got like Cleone being able to soft check Sea Scourge and being able to do pretty well against Deladrix. Now Cosmiore here can do well against Dokomori, it sets up on Tundrelin, and it can abuse Oxydrake for setup, forcing it to Driving Force, and you can run Regift to bounce back the hazards, assuming PvP 2.0 doesn't come out within the next month. Obviously, Cosmiore, for that reason, has a lot of its answers to Rain, blocking them out immediately. And like Deladrix can just pivot out of stuff like Cleone, so you don't really have to be worried about the Cleone matchup. So this helps us better build around the offense that we have in here. Rex, Deladrix, Vesperatu, and Sea Scourge. And then of course you have the supporting cast. With Plasmoth, you have to run Thunder Arc here. I do not have one at the moment. And then you can run Lashent. Lashent, obviously, now it may be a boring option, but I am running stuff like Icicle Traps on here, mainly because, okay, you want to run Slapdown, but Icicle Traps does a very good job at pretty much destroying stuff like Dokomori, and then Fly Chomp and other Lashents that could try and swap in on either Deldrix or Sea Scourge. So for this reason, it is very good to run Lashent with traps, and then you can have Tyrex here just to have the electric immunity, because you don't really do well against electric types in general without a solid ground type. And then you have Vesperatu, which is mainly here for the Cleone and Lumi matchups. Of course, Shade Pearl, or not Shade Pearl, Shade Shell is a very niche item. I wouldn't run this. It is just a fun item that I decided, okay, why not? Because you can out cancel the Shade Shell on Shade Pearl on Luminamis. Obviously, weaknesses to this team are obviously going to be outpacing offensive stuff. Like Avatros won't be able to touch you, but other stuff like Vesperatu will. You just gotta out-offense them with Rain, which obviously isn't the most difficult task in the world. So that is pretty much it for me when we're talking about Cosmiore. Obviously, I think Cosmiore right now is a little bit better than before, mainly because of Dissipate. However, it is really hard for me to recommend Cosmiore over something like Cleone, which arguably does the Dissipate a lot better because it has a lot more serviceable matchups in this metagame, as well as the fact that it has consistent recovery with Rejuvenate. Slumber is kind of at this point. And then, of course, you got a more passive Lumion that has arguably better setup potential with something like Biolana. So there's really not a lot of really big teams that I'd really recommend Cosmiore without recommending the other two. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Anyways, now onto the editing style. The editing style has, at least in my opinion, gotten a bit better. It is more scripted now because I've actually gone through the effort of laying out a template script that I can pretty much use. There's a reason why I don't script most of my HTUCs. One, because I already think it's enough at that point, and then two, it's really hard to make a script under like a deadline of like 5 hours that I try and set myself to. And then yeah, I've pretty much found a solution to that. And then the teammate section being replaced by actual teams instead of cores. I love the cores part because it can just help you build better teams, and I want to encourage better team building. I don't want to make example teams and then have those people just take the teams right away. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. This is Con and Stoops signing off to remind you that Sulong is still a dumpster fire. Even still.